1. I'm a 24-year-old girl, but at the time of this story, I was about 16, and my younger sister was about 14. We were living in a pretty bad neighborhood, along with my mom, just the three of us, as my 4 older brothers had moved away, and my dad had passed away 3 years prior. The house we lived in was old and in kind of bad shape, but we kept it very clean, nice on the inside. It had its benefits though. It came with a huge backyard. I'm talking one full backyard complete with a garage-sized tool shed that was totally dilapidated and abandoned, but we couldn't afford to tear down and also held sentimental value. Right at the edge of our short metal fence, and on the other side of the fence, was a large unfenced plot of land that also belonged to us. We called it the back 40. Now, my mom is not mentally all there. She has the mental and emotional capacity of a 15-year-old girl. But she's also stunningly beautiful. Few people notice. She was also a bleeding heart, meaning basically she was very trusting and wanted to save the world, while also not making very smart choices and honestly putting her tiny, 4'11", 90-pound self in danger, as well as me and my sister a lot. One of the people she constantly tried to save was her best friend, Karen. Karen was your typical white trash, hardcore, drink a fifth of cheap vodka in the morning type of alcoholic. She'd show up at our place hammered a few times a week, sometimes for good money, to hang out, to steal the change off my dresser. You get the idea. Well, one day she shows up with a camper and a borrowed truck. She tells my mom she needs somewhere to keep it, because her new husband kicked her out. I immediately think it's a bad idea. It looks like it hasn't been touched since the 70s. It probably has rats, and it's probably stolen. But my mom, the bleeding heart, says, fine, you can park it behind the shed. I agree, because then it won't be an eyesore, at least. Mistake number 1. She parks it between the metal fence and the back of the shed, so just the very end of it and the hitch are visible from the front of the shed. We all kind of forget it exists for a few months. Then one day, our cousin abandons a puppy at our house. It's a pit bull, and it takes to us immediately. We love him unconditionally, and he loves us back just as hard. We don't even mind that he barks at anyone walking by, or any new people in the house. He usually barks, sniffs, and loves them anyway. We begin to feel kind of safe at the house. A feeling that I hadn't had since the last of my brothers left home. A few months later, it's summertime and my mom is teaching summer school, so my sister and I are home alone. It's about noon and we decide to go sunbathing in the backyard. We toss on our bikinis, grab towels, and lay out in the sun, reading and talking, bonding like only a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old can. But I start to feel uneasy. I start to feel like I'm being watched. I don't know why, but I just get the feeling we should go inside. My sister is a very nervous girl sometimes, prone to crying and breaking down when she's spooked. She's the baby of 6 kids, can't blame her. And I don't want to alarm her, in case it's nothing. So I just tell her I'm hungry and we should go inside. She agrees quickly, and I can tell she's rushing as she grabs her stuff. Fuck. She feels it too. Probably doesn't want to seem like a baby though. We basically run inside the house. Our kitchen is at the back of the house, with a big window above the sink. We stare out of it. We can see the whole backyard. As soon as we're inside, my sister asks if I felt like I was being watched. I say yes. We have a creepy neighbor who is in love with my mom, Karen's ex-husband, who sometimes creeps around the woods next door. My sister says maybe it's him. Normally I'd agree, but I knew he was currently in jail for arson. I start to get freaked out, and then, out of the corner of my eye, I see a flash of a man near the old camper behind the fence. It's so far away, and he moved so quickly I didn't get a good look. My sister sees it too, and freaks out. Our pit bull is too short to see out the window, so he sits calmly at our feet. My sister calls his name and, thinking quickly, lets him out the back door. He goes bounding out, catching the scent of an intruder. Our view is blocked by the shed, but we lock the back door and crack the window, and we watch and listen to him barking viciously. A man's voice saying something, then more barking and a struggle, and then nothing. We can't see what's going on, but we're freaking out. I tell my sister to find the house phone. She runs upstairs to look for it. I run around and lock the front door, double-check the windows and snap the back window shut. I still can't see my dog, and now I can't hear anything either. My heart is pounding. This kind of neighborhood, the cops take hours to come. I'm struck with the memory of calling 911 when my dad collapsed. Before I knew he was dead as soon as he hit the floor. A massive heart attack. Telling the operators my dad was dying. It took them an hour to show up. What could some man do to us in an hour? I'm so scared because, above all else, I love my sister. I grab a steak knife from the counter and hide the rest in a drawer. My sister comes bounding down the stairs, already on the phone, telling the operator what's going on. I tell her to go sit in the living room, try to see if the neighbors are outside, maybe flag one down. All of a sudden, our dog comes bounding around the side of the shed, happy as a clam. I can see the back door from the window, and I check to see if it's clear. He reaches the back door at the same time I do, and I let him in, slamming the door shut behind him. My sister comes running in, and we both examine the dog to see if he's been hurt. What we see at that moment still makes me nauseous to think about. We look at each other, embarrassed. I don't know what to say. I don't know if my sister is old enough to know what we're looking at. We're silent until she breaks quiet. Is that cum on his face? I threw up in the sink. That answers her question. I lift my head from the sink, and out the window I see a man jump the fence toward the back 40, away from us, and take off running into the woods that neighbor our house. My sister, still on the phone, doesn't mention what we found on our dog's face. Out of embarrassment, out of fear. Maybe because she was scared to admit she knew what cum looked like. I don't know. Those are the reasons I don't mention it to the cops, who show up 45 minutes later, though. I'm assuming her reasons were similar. The cops thoroughly checked the woods, but the man was long gone. We checked the shed, but it had obviously not been entered in years. Finally, they checked the camper. Someone had been living in there for a while. Clothes, CDs, a CD player, dog toys, food, needles, and other drug paraphernalia were found inside. The dog toys explained how the guy was able to calm our dog down long enough to mess him. He was a sucker for a row-bone or plushy toy. Police said it was a harmless drifter, looking for a place to live, and told us to get rid of the camper. We did, that day. I'd like to say my mom learned a lesson, but she didn't. I did, though. My sister is tougher than I thought, and she was probably ready for the sex talk. 2. So let me set the stage. I'm dicking around, trying to figure out what I want to do in life. My uncle has this shitty little one-bedroom house in a cul-de-sac he lets me stay in for basically a pittance in rent. Me, with my shitty little retail job, has never heard anything better, so I move in there. Literally, the first 10 minutes I'm there, creep number 2 pops out of his house. One over and across from mine. Think Mr. Heckles from Friends, but tan and bald on top. I got to the house first in my truck because I want to coordinate my male cousins and brother in the U-Haul. And I guess an unaccompanied female was just too much for this guy to resist. He started talking before he was all the way across the street. Just this constant stream of talk that kind of runs into itself. I think he was talking about the people that lived in the neighborhood before. Anyway, he goes off in this long rant about how people who lived in the house before me bred pit bulls and let them tear up the lawn, and how he worked with the owner to help him reseed the yard. I manage not to laugh as I tell him the owner, my uncle, had been the previous tenant, owned one beagle, and that the lawn had never been torn up. I was kinda curious as to how he'd react. The guy just blinked and gave his head this weird sideways shake and went off on another tangent. That would become all too familiar to me in the coming months. The guy would never admit to a lie, just start off on a new one. Anyway, at that point, my crew showed up and we did some righteous moving. I noticed Mr. Heckles popped back into his house as soon as mails showed up. Something that would also become very familiar to me in the coming months. Mr. Heckles would never knock on my door to see if I was in. He would stand at my front window with his face right up against the glass and his hands around his face. Creepy. Any time I was out and unaccompanied, he would whip out of his house and come over to me, talking constantly. It was more annoying than scary at this point. The dude just had an idea that I was this young, naive girl that needed advice. Problem was, I wasn't. And what's more, his advice was always wrong. He would tell me things like refrigerator bulbs couldn't be replaced. So he would help me remove the back paneling on my refrigerator and swap it out. Or he would tell me to do flat-out illegal things like pour motor oil down the drain. Well, about the time I got back together with my on-again, off-again guy friend, that's when it took a turn for the creepy. The dude turned from advice to complaints. He'd show up at 9 at night complaining my dog was barking, and I'd be like, what the fuck? What dog? And I started finding all these little things amiss around the house. My outside faucet would be on when I went out in the morning. My mail would accidentally wind up at his place, even though it had not happened even once before. Once I nearly shit myself when I came back home from work and found the front door unlocked. Nothing was missing, but all my couch cushions were rearranged, and there was a glass in my dish drainer that wasn't there when I left. Thank God he didn't steal my underwear. When I was outside with a man, even if it was one of my relatives, Heckles would sit on his porch and glare. The last straw was when he slashed my tire. I have no idea what set this tantrum off. I guess it was because my boyfriend spent the night that night. He usually didn't, but I had had a bad case of the horns, and suddenly my twin mattress wasn't too narrow for two people. When I stepped out for work the next morning, I noticed my truck was at a distinct angle. Before I even got all the way to the truck, Heckles was out of his house and legging it fast over to my house. He was trying to tell me about a girl he used to know had her tires slashed the exact same way. That's about all I could extract from it. I was at the end of my patience and was like, fucker, I know it was you. He blinked and did a head shake and started off on telling me how to change a tire. I yelled at him that I wasn't a fucking infant. I knew how to change the tire on my own goddamn car. Well, boyfriend heard the yelling and came out. So Heckles scurried back to his burrow. I called my uncle after letting work know I had to miss a day because I wanted out of that place. My uncle told me to hang on. And not less than an hour later, he was over with his tallest son. My uncle wanted to talk to the guy directly, note, never do this, and get him to back off. He had looked up the house renter and, surprise, 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 it wasn't Heckles. My uncle had the idea that if he threatened him with eviction, again, not a good idea, he would back off. So my uncle made a big show of walking over there and knocking on the door. No dice. He hollered at me to call the cops. All bluff. He wasn't going to let the cops in on something as juicy as this. Heckles finally opened the door and asked what he wanted, totally innocently. My uncle said, "You're not the renter here. I looked it up." Heckles looked down at the ground, and his reaction still blows me away. "Please don't tell anybody." So as it turned out, Heckles had known the guy renting the house since before he went in the mental hospital. You heard that right, mental hospital. Heckles got out, and his family had cut contact, so he decided to hit up the guy for a place to stay. Turns out the guy had a stroke at some point and wound up in the hospital. So Heckles was basically squatting in the place. Well, when my uncle was done, the guy never went near me again. I know he got results, but I still wish I would have called the cops because, for all I know, Heckles is still out there somewhere, unmedicated, and waiting for the next stalking target. 3. This is my high school creep story, so, to begin, I'm female and average height. I did track and swimming, so I was below average weight. I was skinny and had not a lot of muscle, surprisingly, since I did sports. I was a freshman and 9th grade was exciting. I had a few friends, but mostly focused on school. I was in advanced math and language art classes. There was a boy named Josh. He was in every one of my classes except for my math class. I didn't talk or interact with him a lot. I got weird vibes from him, but I decided that I was being weird. My friends told me that Josh always asked about me, what I liked, who I liked, pretty much everything about me. I thought it was a prank. After about a month of asking about me, he started talking to me. The first conversation was awkward. "You're a random person, right?" He would ask my name, pretending he didn't know. I would nod and go back to organizing my locker. He kept talking to me. "Would you like to come with me and my friends after school?" "No, thanks." I didn't know him. "Why?" he asked. "I have a lot of homework." I made an excuse. He asked this every day. His friends would come up to me and say that we would make a good couple. I would tell them I was not interested and ask them to leave me alone. They joked I was in denial. Jerks. That's apparently what they told Josh. He came up to my face again. "I heard you liked me. Funny rumors, right?" "Yes, very funny because it's just rumors." I would make sure he heard every word I was saying. "I also heard you were in denial. You shouldn't ignore your feelings." Josh grinned. I really wanted to punch him in the face. He has been bothering me for a long time now. I decided to be nice. "Look, I'm concentrating on school, and I want to go to college in the state my college is in, so I'm not trying to date anyone. Your friends are confused, but I don't like you that way." He walked away and glared at me. The next day, he didn't show up at school. He didn't show up for the next week, claiming he was sick. When he came back, I guess he expected me to talk to him. He would follow me around, but I wouldn't say anything. We had most of the same classes. I went into my math class, and Josh almost followed me inside. That's how I found out he was trying to stalk me. He talked to my friends more, saying we were dating. I would tell them he was lying, and thankfully my friends believed me. Someone stole my schedule, then Josh knew exactly where I was. I would take frequent bathroom breaks in between classes, just to stay away from him. He told my friends he was trying to use reverse psychology on me to make me like him. Like not showing up to school to make me miss him, or being a jerk, since in his mind, girls like jerks. He always made jokes about me. He would joke about my ethnicity, race, or how I apparently had chicken legs. He said that Chinese people ate dogs and cats. I am Chinese. I told him to stop being mean. Then he confessed that he was just trying to be cool. I told him to leave me alone. He followed me even more after that. He signed up for the clubs I was in, stole my personal items, stalked me, talked about me, and tried to get the same schedule as me. I couldn't prove he was the one who stole my things, so the principal couldn't do anything. He tried to get on the bus with me. He told everyone we were dating and in a great relationship. I told everyone that we weren't. He convinced my language arts teacher to let us be partners. He just stared at me, while I did most of the work then he copied off of. I was obsessed with good grades. I couldn't take it anymore. So I told the school counselor. She talked to Josh and his parents. He told me he was sorry and asked if we could be friends. He told my school counselor before and he talked to me. So I was basically forced into this friendship. I had a birthday party which wasn't really a party. I would just hang out with some of my friends and eat cake and open presents. I chose Chris. We lived in the same neighborhood, we were good friends. I texted him when the party was and somehow Josh found out. He showed up at my doorstep. I was freaking out. My mom answered the door telling Josh that I was somewhere else with my friend. I know it was mean, but I was scared of him. He got angry with me at school and tried to hit me. His parents talked to the principal, and Josh could stay in the school, but he had to switch classes and stay away from me. Josh, for yours and my sake, let's never meet. Update. I forgot to type this last part. Josh lost his reputation at school. His friends are still friends with him out of pity, I'm assuming. Most of the girls stay away from him and are creeped out. There was a note that was slipped into my locker, saying it was my fault everyone hates him. Some students are on Josh's side, saying I overreacted, and that I lied when I said he came over to my house. Now it's summer, and I haven't seen him since. But I have heard rumors from my school friends, saying he got into juvie. I have received a text from him about 2 weeks ago, then I blocked him. He was asking me about how I felt about him. I didn't text him back, but if I did, I would have told him that I hate him from the bottom of my heart. He told lies about me, and how I did terrible things. One of the students lost her phone, and he told everyone I stole it. I got my locker and backpack searched. Everyone hated me. I lost a few of my friends since they didn't want to be hated by the other students. Now I know they weren't very good friends. Thanks for ruining my reputation. To Josh, I don't want to see your stupid face and your ignorant personality, so stay away from me if you want to keep your teeth. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 103. I've recorded so many of these things tonight, I forgot what I was doing there. Well, okay, so here we are, at the end of another week. Where's the time going? Okay, so let's see. Game plan for the week. Tomorrow will be more True Scary Stories. Can't go wrong with those. And Tuesday, I think it should be subscriber stories on Tuesday. I believe, let me think. Yeah, actually. I've got a lot of them that are actually quite short, so I'm not sure if it's just going to be 5 or if it might end up being a few more, just to, make sure that the shorter ones find a nice home. We'll see. And then on Wednesday there'll be True Scary Stories again. And Thursday I'm not sure about. I'm going to try. Now there's no promises at the moment because I haven't sent out any messages. I'm going to try to get a glitch video done because I seem to have started something doing those glitch videos. They're proving quite popular. So I'll try and get another one of those done. If I can't, there'll be something up. I'm not sure what. Maybe sleep paralysis. I did say a while ago I was going to attempt that. And I know I said I'm going to start doing proper novels, and I am. But the plan right now is I'm not going to start uploading any of it until I've recorded, say, about the first half of the book. That way I'm pretty much committed at that point, and there's no issues. I've got plenty of material to go up. So those are coming just down the line. But hopefully not too far down the line. Okay, and so with that, I'm going to leave you now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.